everyone, today I'm here to teach you how to develop strategic writers in your classroom. Becoming strategic is an important characteristic of learning. So as we know, most cognitive strategies have direct application to writing. So it's really important that writing strategies coincide with this cognitive development. Writing is a process that's defined where it's a constructive process, and writers make deliberate choices as they construct meaning. They apply strategies purposefully as they plan, revise, and edit their composition. So this was taken from Tompkins 2004, where she really focuses on writing as a process that creates meaning for students. And when students apply writing strategies, they become strategic writers because they plan, they revise, and they edit their compositions. Today I'm going to talk about a few writing strategies that help writers think deliberately and solve problems while they're writing. So we're going to go over just a few writing strategies that help students organize ideas for writing. It helps monitor and evaluate the progress of their work, revise their writing, and most importantly, refine their writing. So here are just a few strategies. So we have the first cognitive writing strategy, which is elaborating. The second cognitive writing strategy is evaluating. Next we have formatting, generating, and monitoring. So these are just a few writing strategies that I am going to talk about to help your students become strategic writers. Again, these writing strategies are important because they're considered cognitive strategy. They involve the thought process and they help students regulate their own thought process. So the first cognitive writing strategy that I'll be discussing for helping your students become strategic writers is elaborating. So what elaborating is when students and writers expand on their ideas by adding details. So some of the activities that you can practice in your classroom is having students brainstorm ideas, having students find information in books, having students complete snapshots, or exploring. So this part of the writing strategy is also the writing strategy where students are just brainstorming and coming up with ideas. So right now they're in the process of expanding ideas, and this is a cognitive writing strategy that will help students think about their thought process. The next cognitive writing strategy for developing strategic writer is having students evaluate. So by evaluating, students are expanding and evaluating their composition, and they're judging how well they met their goals. So some of the activities that are presented in evaluating is having rubrics, checklists, and reflections where students are able to assess whether they've met their set goal. Another cognitive writing strategy that calls for deliberate thinking is having students format. Formatting is a strategy that allows students to really think about the layout of their pieces, and it allows them to use their layout and design their layout to enhance their text. So this can mean incorporating illustrations or incorporating layouts on the computer to make sure that their layout is really helpful for conveying their message. So some of the activities that you can do in your classroom is having students use word processing such as Google Classroom, Google Docs, Microsoft Word. You can have students make final copies. You can have students design a title. So this is really what formatting is about, is making sure that whatever programs they're using to show their final copies is illustrated and enhances their writing. So we want the format to really be helpful in enhancing student writing. So this is a strategy that we can use in our classroom that allows students to think deliberately. Another cognitive writing strategy that we can use in our classroom is monitoring. So students use monitoring to keep track of their progress. They detect any problems that arise and they quickly take action to resolve the problem. So this metacognitive strategy is really important because it allows students to really regulate the application of other strategies. It allows students to develop and refine their composition. So some of the activities that you can practice in your classroom is having students reread rough drafts, ask themselves questions, get feedback from classmates and from teachers. So this is the metacognitive thinking where students are thinking about their own writing process. Beginning writers in your classroom will more or less be focused on some of the local concerns in their rough draft, such as minor misspelled words, omitted words, punctuation marks, whereas your more experienced writers are going to attend to developing their big ideas and getting feedback from their peers about some of the larger ideas that they intend on using for their projects. And the last cognitive writing strategy that's really useful for developing strategic writers in your classroom is the strategy of generating. Now, students use this generating strategy to gather ideas and collect words for their writing. So they use their background knowledge and activate their background knowledge as they consciously think about what they want to know about the writing topic. So writers that use this generating idea think about brainstorming. They also think about clustering. They think about drawing, quick writing, talking with their peers in order to generate these ideas. Students' activities that you can complete in your classroom is having students make a list of any ideas that they have them draw images to develop their ideas for writing, have them search the internet where they look for big ideas, and having peers talk to each other and generate and elaborate ideas, having need-to-need sharing conversations or encouraging students to share their conversations is a metacognitive strategy that's useful for writing. Now, it's not enough to talk about these writing strategies. The question is, how do these writing strategies fit into the writing process? So normally when teachers teach the writing process, they teach pre-writing, drafting, revising, editing, and publishing. These writing strategies that I just taught you fit into the writing process, and I'll show you how. When teachers teach the pre-writing stage, writers tend to plan, they tend to gather ideas, they tend to reflect on their writing, make judgments about their writing, regulate whether the pre-writing activities prepared them for their writing. So the strategies that are naturally used are evaluating and generating. So when students cover the pre-writing stage of writing, they are using the evaluating and the generating strategy because they are thinking and they're judging and they're evaluating about their ideas, and they're not only using a teacher's judgment, but they're also using their peers' judgment. Now, during the stage of drafting, students tend to organize their ideas. They tend to think about how they're formatting their ideas. This goes to the process of evaluating, elaborating, and monitoring, where students are looking at their checklists and deciding whether or not they have met the criteria for their drafts. When our writers are revising their work, they tend to reread, they tend to ask questions, reflect, and they naturally practice the process of evaluating, the strategy of elaborating, and monitoring, because they're keeping track of their progress, they're detecting any problems that arise, and they're taking action to resolve them. Then we have the editing stage, where writers are monitoring their own progress and they're proofreading, and this goes to the strategy that they're using is the monitoring and evaluating, where they're looking at rubrics, at checklists, to see whether or not they've met their criteria, and if they haven't, they're reflecting on what they can do to achieve that goal or that criteria. And finally, for the last stage, we have publishing, where students are designing, they're evaluating, and the strategies that are used is formatting, monitoring, and evaluating, where students are again thinking about the process of their writing and how their format will allow them to show the work that they've accomplished, and how the formatting will allow them to depict their writing in a strategic manner. Now that you've seen how these writing strategies fit into the writing process, now we want to incorporate these writing strategies in our grades. So in grades 6 through 8, in order to incorporate these writing strategies, you need to explicitly teach the student how to use the writing strategy. The students have to then take what the teacher explicitly taught and apply it to their own writing. Then the students have to self-regulate, which goes back to the idea of evaluating on the process of their writing. And students reflect, which allows them to really monitor their own progress. So as a teacher, when you teach these writing strategies in your classroom, you begin with the explicit instruction. So you have to explain what the strategy does and how it helps the student become better writers. Talk about how to use the strategy, share examples of the strategy in mentor text, and show the students explicitly how to use the strategy. After, you must model the strategy, demonstrate the strategy as they write. During the modeling process, teachers also want to share their thought process and the decisions that they make to follow the writing strategy. Next, we have collaboration, where teachers are scaffolding the use of the strategy that they're learning and the regulation of these strategies through writing activities. So teachers work with the class to compose writing samples together. Then students work in their own groups to apply the writing strategies, or they can do guided writing strategies. But however, they're practicing the writing strategies before the independent application. Now that you've been taught the writing strategy, how the writing strategy is seen in the writing process, and how to teach the writing strategy, I want you to know that strategies can be implemented in all the classroom, regardless of the student, and there's different implications that we can use. So these strategies can be implemented in shared writing, in modeled writing, in guided writing, in independent writing. These strategies can be implemented in all sorts of writing, regardless of whether the student's an L or a gifted student. So these strategies and implications can be done in all classroom writing. With these writing strategies, you can add all levels of support to all of your students. I hope that was helpful in developing strategic writers in your classroom. If you're interested in learning more about teaching writing, balancing process and product, please look at Gail Tompkins' Teaching Writing. Again, she focuses on balancing process and product, where students reflect on the process, and that allows them to monitor their own learning and think about these cognitive strategies that will be implemented throughout the writing process, throughout each grade. Thank you very much.